November 2nd, 1900, Volume 4. One who dwells in Jesus swims in the sea of all contentments. This morning I felt all oppressed and afflicted, with the addition that blessed Jesus was not making himself seen. Then after much waiting he came out from within my interior, and opening his heart to me, he placed me inside of it, telling me, "Remain inside of me. Only there will you find true peace and stable contentment, because nothing penetrates into me which does not belong to peace and contentment. One who dwells in me does nothing but swim in the sea of all contentments, while by going outside of me, even if the soul did not bother about anything, at the mere sight of the offenses they give me and of how they grieve me, she already comes to participate in those afflictions and remains troubled. Therefore, every once in a while, forget everything, enter into me, and come to enjoy my peace and happiness. Then go out and do for me the office of my repairer." Having said this, he disappeared. November 2nd, 1905, Volume 6. The soul must conform to the divine will, and if she does so, Jesus makes her live of himself and in himself. As I was in my usual state, I was very afflicted because of the privation of my adorable Jesus. And I was saying, Lord, I want nothing but you. I find no other contentment but in you alone. And you have left me so cruelly?" While I was saying this, he came out from within my interior and told me, "It is so? I alone am your contentment? And I find all my contentment in you. So even if I had nothing else, you would render me happy. My daughter, a little bit of patience until the wars begin, for then we will place ourselves in order as before." And I, without knowing myself what I was saying, said, "Lord, let them begin." But I immediately added, "Lord, I was wrong." And he, "Your will must be mine. Nothing must you want, be it even a holy thing, which is not conformed to my will. In the circle of my will do I want you to go around always, without going out of it for one instant, so that I may render you the master of my very self. Do I want the war? You too. And with the soul who comports herself in this way, I make of my being a circle around her, in such a way as to make her live of me and in me." And he disappeared. November 2nd, 1909, Volume 9. One should never look at the past, but at the present. Continuing in my usual state, I was thinking about my things of the past, and blessed Jesus, making himself seen for just a little, told me, "My daughter, do not look at the past, because the past is already in me and can be of distraction for you, and it can make you mistake that little bit of path that is left for you to cover. In fact, your turning to the past makes you slow your pace on the present journey, and so you lose time and do not advance on your way. On the other hand, by looking only at the present, you will have more courage. You will remain more closely united with me. You will advance more on your path, and there will be no danger of your being mistaken." November 2nd, 1911, Volume 10. Jesus gives her a heart of light and tells her to do everything by means of that heart. Continuing in my usual state, blessed Jesus came for just a little, And as I lamented to him because he was coming only in passing, and did not give me time to tell him anything about the so many needs that exist, with the addition that when he comes, now he clasps me tightly, now he transforms me so much within his will, as to leave me not even a little space to be able to plead for his creatures. Jesus told me, "My daughter, you always want to know it. I tell you, things will be grave, extremely grave, and this is the whole reason. And if I placed myself in intimacy with you, you would bind me and come up with something of yours. Rather, you must have patience and let me bind you for now." Then he took a heart of light and placed it in my interior, adding, "You will love, you will speak, you will think, you will repair, you will do everything by means of this heart." November 2nd, 1912, Volume 11. One who wants to know herself must know herself in Jesus, and she will find her true image in him, as well as the image of the other, placing the whole of herself in the divine order. Continuing in my affliction, I was saying to myself, I no longer recognize myself. Sweet life of mine, where are you? What should I do to find you again? Without you, my love, I cannot find the beauty that embellishes me, the fortitude that strengthens me, the life that vivifies me. I lack everything. Everything is death for me. Without you, life itself is more harrowing than any death. It is continual death. Come, oh Jesus, I cannot take it any more. Oh, Supreme Light, come. Don't make me wait any more. You, let me feel the touch of your hands, and then as I try to grab you, you run away from me. You let me see your shadow, and as I try to look at the majesty in the shadow, the beauty of my Son, Jesus, I lose both shadow and sun. Please, mercy. My heart is shredded, lacerated into pieces. I cannot live any more. If I could at least die. As I was saying this, my always adorable Jesus came and told me, "My daughter, I am here inside of you. If you want to recognize yourself, come into me, to recognize yourself inside of me. If you come to recognize yourself in me, you will put yourself in order, because in me you will find your image, made by me and similar to me. You will find everything that is needed to preserve and embellish this image. As you come to recognize yourself in me, you will also recognize your neighbor in me, and in seeing how I love you and the other, you will rise to the degree of true divine love. Everything inside and outside of you will take on the true order, divine order. But if you want to recognize yourself inside of yourself, first, you won't really recognize yourself because you will lack divine light. Second, you will find all things in disorder, clashing with themselves. Misery, weakness, darkness, passions, and all the rest. You will find all these things in disorder inside and outside of yourself, trying to make war not only with you, but also with themselves, to see which one can hurt you the most. And you, imagine in what order they will put your neighbor toward yourself. Not only do I want you to recognize yourself in me, But if you want to remember yourself, you must come and do it in me. Otherwise, if you try to remember yourself without me, you will do more harm than good. November 2nd, 1917, Volume 12, Laments of Jesus, Threats of Chastisements for Italy. Continuing in my state amid privations, pains, and bitternesses, especially because of the many troubles that one hears about, and the entrance of the foreigners into Italy, I was praying good Jesus to stop the enemies, and I said to him, "Is this perhaps the flood you were talking about in the last days?" And good Jesus came and told me, "My daughter, this was exactly the flood I was talking about, and the flood will continue to flow and flow. The foreigners will continue to invade Italy. She has very much deserved it. I had chosen Italy as a second Jerusalem, but in return she has neglected my laws and has denied the rights which were due to me. I can say that she no longer behaved humanly, but as a beast. I have not been recognized, even under the scourge of the war, and she wanted to go on as my enemy. She has justly deserved this defeat, and I will continue to humiliate her to the dust." And I, interrupting him, "Jesus, what are you saying? Poor homeland of mine, how torn you will be. Jesus, mercy, stop the current of the foreigner." And Jesus, "My daughter, to my sorrow I have to allow the foreigner to advance. You would want victory because you do not love souls as I do. But if Italy wins, it will be a ruin for souls. Their pride would reach the point of ruining the little good which is left in the nation. She would have been pointed out as the nation which can do without God. My daughter, the scourges will continue. Towns will be devastated. I will strip them of everything. The poor and the rich will be one single thing. They did not want to recognize my laws. They made of the earth a god for each one. And I, by stripping them, will make them recognize what the earth is. I will purify the earth by fire, because the stench that emanates from it is such that I cannot bear it. Many will remain buried in the fire. In this way I will make the earth come to its senses. It is necessary. The salvation of souls requires it. I had spoken to you about these chastisements a long time ago. The time has come, yet not completely. More troubles will come. I will make the earth come to its senses. I will make the earth come to its senses." And I, "My Jesus, placate yourself. Enough for now." And he, no, pray, and I will render the enemy less cruel." November 2nd, 1926, Volume 20, Hiding One's Acts in the Acts of the Celestial Mamma, and How They Stand in for Her. How redemption will serve no longer as food for the sick, but as food for the healthy. I continued my living in the divine Fiat, and while doing my acts in it, I absorbed light. And as it formed its reflections, as many threads of light came out, that formed a net of light that extended over the earth in order to catch the creatures. And Jesus, moving in my interior, told me, "My daughter, every time you go around in my will, you take more light in order to form the net with which to catch the creatures. And do you know what this net is? It is my knowledges. The more knowledges I manifest to you about the eternal Fiat, the more I dispose and expand the net in order to catch the souls who must live in my kingdom. And this disposes the Lord to give them to you. When you go around in our will, by virtue of it, your acts become light, and extend so much as to touch the divinity and draw more light of truth into the midst of creatures. Then, while I continued my round in everything that has been done in the supreme will, I arrived at everything that my celestial mamma had done in it, and I said to her, "Sovereign Queen, I come to hide my little love in the great sea of your love, my adoration toward God in the immense ocean of yours. I hide my thanksgivings in the sea of yours. I hide my supplications, my sighs, my tears and pains in the sea of yours, so that my sea of love and yours may be one, my adoration and yours may be one. My thanksgivings may acquire the vastness of your own expanses. My supplications, tears, and pains may become one single sea with yours, so that I too may have my seas of love, of adoration, and so forth. And just as your sovereign height impetrated with this, the longed-for Redeemer, so I too may present myself before the divine majesty with all these seas, in order to ask, to beseech, to implore the kingdom of the supreme Fiat. My Queen Mamma, I must use your very life, your very seas of love and of graces to conquer it, to make it concede its kingdom upon earth, just as you conquered it to let the eternal word descend. Don't you want to help your little daughter by giving me your seas, so that I may obtain that the kingdom of the supreme Fiat comes soon upon earth?" Now, while I was doing and saying this, I thought to myself, my celestial mamma did not occupy herself, nor did she have great interest in the kingdom of the supreme Fiat, that it might come soon to reign upon earth. She had interest in the longed-for Redeemer, and she obtained him. As for the divine Fiat, that was more necessary, and that was to put perfect order between creator and creature. She did not occupy herself with it, while it was up to her as queen and mother to reconcile the human will and the divine, so that the divine might reign with its full triumph. At that moment, my always lovable Jesus came out from within my interior, and all goodness told me, "My daughter, the mission of my inseparable mamma was for the longed-for Redeemer, and she fulfilled it perfectly. However, you must know that everything that both she and I did, its substance, its source, and primary cause, was the kingdom of my will. But since redemption was necessary in order for this to come, though the kingdom of the Fiat was inside our acts, on the outside we were all intent and occupied with the kingdom of redemption. On the other hand, your mission is exclusively for the kingdom of the supreme will, and everything that the sovereign queen and I did is at your disposal, to help you, to stand in for you, to give you access to the divine majesty, in order to impetrate and ask incessantly for the coming of the kingdom of the eternal Fiat. In order for you to receive the good of the longed-for Redeemer, you should have done your part. But since at that time you were not there, my mamma stood in for you. Now you must stand in for her, in her part, for the kingdom of my will." So the mamma stood in for the daughter, and the daughter stands in for the mamma. More so since the Queen of Heaven was the first daughter of my will, and because she always lived within our expanse, she formed her own seas of love, of graces, of adoration, of light. Now, since you are the second daughter of my will, what is hers is yours, because your mamma keeps you as a birth from herself, and she enjoys that her daughter be inside her own seas, in order to impetrate the so longed-for kingdom of the divine Fiat upon earth. Therefore see how abundantly your mamma makes up for you, giving you all that is hers. Even more, she feels honored that her immense seas serve you, in order to impetrate a kingdom so holy. Then after this I was following in the divine will what Jesus has done in redemption. And my sweet Jesus, coming back, added, "My daughter, my redemption came as remedy for man, and therefore it serves as remedy, as medicine, as food, for the sick, for the blind, for the mute, and for all kinds of maladies. And because they are sick, they do not enjoy nor receive all the strength that all the remedies that I came to bring them for their good contain. The Eucharistic sacrament that I left as food in order to give them perfect health, many eat it over and over again, but they appear always sick. Poor food of my very life, hidden under the veils of the accidents of the bread. How many corrupted palates, how many undigesting stomachs that prevent creatures from enjoying the taste of my food and from digesting all the strength of my sacramental life. And so they remain infirm. And because they are members feverish and evil, they take it with no appetite. This is why I long so much for the coming of the kingdom of the supreme Fiat, because then everything I did in coming upon earth will serve as food for those who enjoy perfect health. What is not the difference between a sick person who takes the same food and someone else who enjoys perfect health? The infirm one takes it without appetite, without taste, and it serves him in order to sustain himself and not die. The healthy one takes it with appetite, and because he enjoys it, he takes more, and preserves himself strong and healthy. So what will not be my contentment in seeing that, in the kingdom of my will, everything I did will serve no longer as food for the sick, but as food for the children of my kingdom, who will be all full of vigor and in perfect health. Even more, by possessing my will, they will possess my permanent life within them, just as the blessed in heaven possess it. So my will be the veil that will hide my life in them. And just as the blessed possess me within themselves as their own life, because true happiness has its origin inside the soul, and so the happiness that they receive continuously from the divinity holds hands and exchanges the kiss with the happiness that they possess inside, and this is why they are fully happy. In the same way, the soul who possesses my will have my perennial life within her that will serve her as continuous food, not once a day, like the food of my sacramental life. In fact, my will make greater display, nor will it be content with giving itself once a day, but it will give itself continuously, because it knows that these have pure palates and strong stomachs to be able to enjoy and digest in every moment the strength, the light, the divine life. And the sacraments, my sacramental life, will serve as food, as delight, as new happiness for the life of the supreme Fiat that they will possess. The kingdom of my will be the true echo of the celestial fatherland, in which, while the blessed possess their God as their own life, they receive him into themselves also from the outside. So, inside and outside of themselves, divine life they possess, and divine life they receive. What will not be my happiness in giving myself sacramentally to the children of the eternal Fiat, and in finding my own life in them? Then will my sacramental life have its complete fruit. And as the species are consumed, I will no longer have the sorrow of leaving my children without the food of my continuous life, because my will, more than sacramental accidents, will maintain its divine life always with its full possession. In the kingdom of my will, there will be neither foods nor communions that are interrupted, but perennial. and everything I did in redemption will serve no longer as remedy, but as delight, as joy, as happiness, and as beauty ever growing. So the triumph of the supreme Fiat will give complete fruit to the kingdom of redemption. November 2nd, 1927, Volume 23. Difference between one who lives and operates in the divine will and one who does good in the night of the human will. My flight in the divine will is continuous, and my poor intelligence is as though fixed in it. And in its light I could comprehend the great difference between the operating in the supreme will and the human operating, good in itself, but without the life of the divine Fiat in the action of the creature. So I said to myself, how can all this difference be possible? And my beloved Jesus, moving within my interior, told me, my daughter, the human will formed the night for the human family and their souls. And if they do good works, even important ones, since good in itself is light, they unleash from themselves many little lights. It might be the light of a match, the light of a little lamp, or of an electric bulb. According to the good present in the human action and to the multiplicity of the actions, so are the lights formed, some small, some a little larger. But even though, by virtue of their little lights, they and those who surround them receive the good of not remaining in the dark, they do not have the virtue of making the night turn into the day. So they might be even like cities or houses that possess the good of many electric lights, that are also subject to becoming extinguished. But being able to change the night into day, this will be impossible for them, because it is not in the nature of the light formed by human industriousness, whether in the soul or in the body, to be able to form the full day. Only the sun, possessing this virtue of dispelling the darkness of the night, and of forming its full day that, blazing with light and heat, gladdens the earth with all its inhabitants, and wherever it shines, it produces its vital effects for all nature. Now, only the living in my will, and operating in it, is continuous daytime. And as the soul operates, be her action small or great, she acts under the reflection of the eternal and immense sun of my Fiat. And as it is reflected in the action of the creature, by virtue of it, the sun is formed in the human action, and the creature remains in possession of these suns that make her enjoy continuous full day. And since these suns have been formed by virtue of the reflections of the sun of my divine volition, that possesses the source of light, the human action, converted into sun, is nourished by the source of light, and therefore they are not subject to either becoming extinguished or decreasing in light. See, then, what great difference exists between one who operates and lives in my will and one who does good outside of it. It is the difference that passes between one who can form the sun and many suns and one who can form light. And one sun is enough to eclipse all the lights, and all lights together do not have the virtue nor the intensity of light to be able to surpass one sun. In order to comprehend this with more clarity, you can see it in the order of the universe, that all lights of whatever kind, formed by the human industriousness, are incapable of forming the day. On the other hand, the sun created by my creative hands, even though it is one, forms the day, because it possesses the source of light, placed in it by its creator, and therefore it is not subject to decreasing in light, symbol of those who live in my divine will. In all of their acts flows an act of divine life, a creative strength that has the virtue of forming suns. Nor does it lower itself or want to form little lights, but suns that are never extinguished. From this you can comprehend how the good produced by the human will, though it cannot form the day, is always a good for man, and creatures receive the utility of light in the night of the human will. It serves them so as not to die in the thick darkness of sin. Those lights, though small, direct their steps, allow them to see the dangers, and draw my paternal goodness toward them, seeing that they make use of the night of their human will to form at least little lights, so as to direct their steps along the path of salvation. It was precisely this that drew all our tenderness and our paternal goodness toward Adam. He had comprehended what living in our divine will meant, and with his littlest acts, just as with the greatest, he ran inside our creative virtue, and they were invested by the Son of the eternal Fiat that, being Son, had the virtue of being able to form as many sons as he wanted. And in seeing himself emptied of this creative strength, he could no longer form sons. And so, poor one, he tried as hard as he could to form little lights. And in seeing the great difference between his original act and that after sin, he felt such grief as to feel himself dying at each act of his. The Supreme Being felt touched and admired the industriousness of poor Adam, who, no longer able to form sons, did his best to form little lights with his acts, and because of this, he kept for him the promise of the future Messiah. End of November 2nd. Fiat.